Hello, I'm Nama Rue. This is my husband, Rabbi David Rue, and we're talking about Shmita, and it's the year that the land rests in the 7-year cycle. In the 7th year, which is right now the cycle of 5782.
82.
And the land is ownerless, is always Hashem's land, but we have a relationship with the land changes and with each other changes this year. So can you explain how we handle this?
Well, the pasuk says, "והשביעית תשמטנה ונטשתה," and the 7th year it will be ownerless and abandoned. There are two ways of looking at this. One way is the Torah is instructing us that we have to declare our land ownerless and abandoned on Shmita. And the other is that God is declaring the land ownerless and abandoned on Shmita. The Rambam says, Shnas Hashmita, kula hefker, on the Shmita year, everything is ownerless. Ve'en ba lo truma v'lo mosers kral. And just like any other ownerless thing, if you walking down the street and there's on unowned land, on non-cared for land, there's fruits growing or vegetables or whatever, you can take it because it's ownerless, and there's no trumas and maaseros because it's ownerless. Because it says sadcha, everything that comes out of your field, and it's not your field, it's not anyone's field. So the Beit Yosef and the Mabit, as we've seen earlier, have a debate as whether non-Jewish produce grown on non-Jewish land has sanctity of Shmita. The Beit Yosef saying it doesn't, and the Mabit saying it does. They disagree here as well, in the same tshuva, actually. In the Beit Yosef in tshuva's Avkas rouchel, which is the spices of the peddler, he writes, Ki lo niftaru perosh shvius mama'sros, ela mטעם הפקר. The only reason why the fruit of the Shemitah year is exempt from trumas and מעשרות because they're ownerless. V'kol שאינו mufkar lo niftar ממעשרות. And anyone that doesn't declare their fields ownerless, then the fruit and vegetables in those fields still require us to separate trumas and מעשרות from them. Exactly what year for Ma'aser Rishon wouldn't be a problem. Is it Ma'aser Sheni or Ma'aser Ani? It would be a problem as to which one that would be, but that's a different issue. The Mabit, in his chuvas, disagrees, and he says, Yisrael shegader karmo v'lo hifkir b'shnas hashmita. If a Jew he leaves his fence around his vineyard and locks it up tightly so no one can get in on the sabbatical year, Rachmana afkare la'ara la'anim u'lashirim. Hashem, the All-Merciful One, declared it ownerless for the poor and the rich. It doesn't matter. It's not like poor person's tithe, leket shicha and peah that we've described, that we've talked about previously, that are for the poor. This is for the poor or the rich. Anyone. It doesn't distinguish. Ulekach ein shum chiyuv b'maiser. And because God has declared the land ownerless, therefore there's no obligation in maiser. Now, one of the very famous bar mitzvah presents, probably the most famous bar mitzvah present ever, was the Sefer HaChinuch, the book of education, which Rabbeinu Aaron Halevi of Barcelona wrote as a bar mitzvah gift for his son, describing all the mitzvahs in every parsha in the order that they appear in the parsha, which is a different ordering than the Rambam uses. He uses the same mitzvahs as the Rambam, but it's different ordering. The Rambam goes based upon the logical order, and he separates the positive and negative mitzvahs and so on. There are many other ways of doing this. This is the way the Sefer HaChinuch did. And one of the great commentaries in the Sefer HaChinuch is the Minchas Chinuch. And there, the Minchas Chinuch in Mitzvah Pei Dalet looks at the differences between the Beit Yosef and the Mabit in understanding this. And he writes as follows: Shuv Ha'ir Hashem Yisbarach Hasenai, Metzatzi B'Mabit. Then God opened up my eyes, and I found in the Mabit over here, V'herich v'chalak al Rabbeinu Beit Yosef. And he disagreed with our rabbi, the Beit Yosef. Le'inyan Paris Akum bekarka akum, about fruit that a non-Jew grows on a non-Jew's land. V'dasa Beit Yosef te'ena afkara Dmlכא. The opinion of the Beit Yosef is that God did not declare this land ownerless. Rak mitzave elenu. He only commanded us to make it ownerless. V'das hamabit hu afkarta Dmlכא. And the Mabit says that God declared the land ownerless. And then, I'm not going through the entire thing, I'm skipping sections, but he looks at certain issues to determine that there's a difference in how you look at it according to the opinion of the Beit Yosef and the Mabit is what happens in these areas. V'ani mesupak, and I have a question. I hamitzvah of kafta de gavra, if this is a mitzvah that falls upon a man's skull, literally, hu derechman tzivahu lahafkir perosav b'shvis, that the merciful one declared that he should declare his fruits ownerless in the Shemitah year, umachuyav l'kayim lahafkir, v'ma'afkir harei hefker, that he's obligated to declare it ownerless, and if he declares it ownerless, then in fact it is ownerless. Avalim eno mafkir, eno mufkar. But if he doesn't declare it ownerless, it isn't. V'nihida over al mitase, and he's transgressed a positive mitzvah according to the Beit Yosef of not declaring his field ownerless. Mikol makom eno hefker. Nonetheless, it's still owned. It's not ownerless. Rak over al gezeres Hashem Yisbarach. He's just transgressed God's orders. Imken ein acha rishai litlo. If so, no one else can take the fruits because he had to declare it ownerless. It's still his. As long as it's still his, I can't steal it. I can't take it. If he did declare it ownerless, of course, then I could take it because it's ownerless. However, if you look at the other way of looking at it, that according to the Mabit, God declared this land ownerless right now, then of course I can go in and take it anytime I want because it's ownerless. No one owns it. All right, that's the first point that the Minchas Chinuch makes. It also appears that the author of the Sefer Chinuch writes that this halacha applies to both men and to women. V'i amrei de mitzvahs asehu akar kafta to mechuyav lahafkir. And if we say that this is a mitzvah incumbent upon each person that owns land to declare his land ownerless, to ken gezeres hakasav im ken lama nashim chayavim b'mitzvah zu. If so, why are women obligated in this mitzvah? Ha mitzvahs aseh shezman grama. Nashim Paturas, all time-bound positive mitzvahs, women are exempt from. And since this is a time-bound positive mitzvah, it occurs once every 7 years, women should be exempt from it, right? And therefore, if a woman owns the land, you wouldn't be allowed to take things from the land because she has no obligation in this mitzvah because it's time-bound. Whereas if you say God declares it ownerless, then also a woman's land, right? The fruit and vegetables would be ownerless on it. Elim can dehu afkata Dmlכא, unless you say that it is God, the king, the real king, who declares it ownerless. Ve'in chiluk bein nashim lenashim de Torah afkere. And then you would have to say that there's no difference between men and women in terms of the land. So he's saying the fact that the Rambam and the Sefer Mitzvos say that this mitzvah applies to both men and women implies that they're paskening like them a bit, that God is declaring the land ownerless and we don't have an obligation to go out and say the land is ownerless. And he continues, V'hine im nimtza de mitzvahs karfta de gavra im ken cherashot bekatan sheyesh lem sedei b'yerusha or shenitan lehem b'matana. And also, if we want to say that it's a personal obligation, then if you're talking about a deaf mute, a crazy person, or a minor that either inherited a field or someone gave them a field, right? They are not bound in mitzvahs at all, at any time, either time-bound or any other type of mitzvah. If they're not bound in mitzvahs and the halacha is only if a person declares his field ownerless, is it ownerless, right? Then no one can take things from a field owned by a deaf mute, a crazy person, or a minor, because it's not ownerless. In fact, they have no ability. They don't have, we call them people that are lav b'nei das. They don't have the normal functioning capabilities that are required to give up on property, to declare something ownerless. Therefore, their property, it would clearly be stealing from them to take from this land. I'm sorry, I just read that. And a deaf mute, a crazy person, a minor, are not liable in mitzvahs. Im ken, ein perosehem hefker b'shvis, v'chayav b'trumas ma'asros. Therefore, their fruits are never ownerless on Shmita, and they're liable in Truma Aser. V'aser likach perosehem, and you can't take their fruits. Ach, im nemar dehu Afka'tã Dmalkã, but if you say it's God who declared this land ownerless, gam perish el cheresh shota v'katan have hefker gamur. Also, the fruits of the deaf mute, crazy person, and minor are completely ownerless. There's more here, and there's more on this issue, and we will continue with this issue.
Which way is it?
It's an ongoing debate.
Okay, so like if we declared that our front yard is ownerless, but not our backyard, then what? It's still ownerless, isn't it?
The front yard would certainly be ownerless. According to the Beit Yosef, the backyard wouldn't be ownerless. According to the Mabit, it would be ownerless.
And then if we didn't declare the backyard ownerless, then we're transgressing a positive mitzvah.
Right, but we'll see more on this, and this is a long subject that has to be examined carefully.
Okay.
We'll continue with this, and hopefully in a few Lashirim, one or more, we'll be able to clarify this
Okay.
for everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.